I grew up surrounded by music. My older sisters are also singers, and everyone played piano. My father played guitar. He taught me how to play guitar and finger pick, which I still think is really cool. There was just always music in the house, and my grandmother was a concert pianist. She had an all-girl band in the 1920s. She played the saxophone. And interestingly, my grandfather actually made her stop performing.
So my friend offers me a gig at Tinker Street Cafe to open for somebody, but it was a ridiculously early slot, and they wanted me on from like 7 to 8. So I get in there, and it's the bartender and the waitress and me. I'm hoping 1 or 2 people come in, but it wasn't happening. So these 4 guys walk in, and they sit in the front row. And I wrote a lot of like punk songs, ridiculous songs, and they were like shouting the lyrics back at me and the choruses. And I thought, who are these guys?
I loved the drummer, but I wanted to play the guitar. I loved the look, the sound, everything about it. I just wanted that raw power. Once I got into my mid-teen years, I really started getting into punk rock. And it, of course, had that rebellion that was in me and that angst that was in me. And it was just such a connection to be able to go to these shows. Like my first punk rock show was at the Ritz. It was my first taste of stage diving and slam dancing, and I had a phenomenal time. The next day I felt like I got the crap beat out of me. It wasn't a violent thing. It was more of getting that angst out. Nobody was there to hurt one another.
So anyway, I always do a lineup, basically. Everybody lines up, you go by, you fix guys' ties, you cock their hat, you fasten the fur correctly for the women, stuff like that. Give them some gloves. So I go to one guy, and he was a total mess. And he wasn't supposed to be a mess, right? Some people are supposed to be a mess. And I said, I started straightening him out. He goes, whoa, 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 like this. He goes, Lisa said I'm supposed to look like this. Now, meanwhile, I have a whole staff behind me, and everybody's dead silent. I go, she did? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, huh, that's weird, because she's not usually like that. And everybody, he was a new guy, everybody knew who I was.
So I ended up there, and there was a pretty young woman sitting behind, and when I was looking to see the bids going up, I was actually looking at her and said, she looks very nice, and she seemed to be like a nice person. Anyway, before long, that work of mine did come up for auction, and she said to me, is that you? I said, yeah, that's my work. And she knew me somehow. And as it turned out, well, my work did sell not for a nice price, but we ended up sharing the same auction catalog, and we've been together ever since.
My mother had a habit of having us go to the matinee. When the show was over, go to the restroom. She goes into the restroom. The audience goes out of the theater. New audience comes in. They come out of the restroom. Find a seat in the bleachers and pretend that you've never been there before. And we used to do that for 4 days straight every year, right? So I've seen Marvin Gaye in pinstripe pants, Marvin Gaye getting his bell bottoms, Marvin Gaye getting his jumpsuit, Marvin Gaye getting his paisleys, Marvin Gaye in his knit hat, Marvin Gaye with Tammy Terrell, Marvin Gaye with each one of his duets, Stevie the same way. I've seen the Temptations do their thing from year to year. And what I look at is like, how do they stay around so long? You know what I mean? Because they're all still from my neighborhood. Jackie Wilson was from my neighborhood. And I've seen people like really praising Jackie Wilson, like, wow, you know, he's the great Jackie Wilson. But I've seen like people where they would praise like the pretty girl on Jackie Wilson's arm. And when Jackie Wilson got sick, they couldn't wait to get the girl. So I always saw rock and roll as like this kind of place when you step into it, it's not heaven, that's for sure. God dropped the style, stay low.